Welcome back everyone to my series of videos making a small pipe organ from scratch. We're now going to concentrate on fitting all the off-note pipes, which are the pipes that don't fit onto the wind chest. So they're not they're too big basically to fit underneath the keyboard or to go on the chest itself. So they have to be set onto off-note blocks or distributed horizontally inside the instrument. So I'm starting off by making a couple of pinholes on the bottom pipes. These are the horizontal ones which fit underneath the keyboard and are in a stack. So I've got two holes here with nails in them, little cut-off nails, and I will position it very carefully onto the two blocks that I've placed on top of the chest there. And I'll tap this pipe down onto those blocks, making an imprint with the nails. So then I have a hole, a mark as to where to drill a hole to put a dowel in, so that I can position the pipe and secure it to the chest. So we'll lift it off, which will leave two little holes. We'll take the pins out of the pipe, drill a hole. It is exactly the same size as the dowel, and obviously we won't go all the way through here. We'll stop before we penetrate into the body of the pipe. So I'm just setting the depth of the drill so that doesn't happen. One end, and the other end, and then we'll drill the holes in the plates on the chest. The depth is set by the depth of the drill. Just clean up the mess. And we're ready to put the dowels in the pipe. So I'll glue these dowels in, but I'll do it dry first to check I've got the position correct. So then now we can offer it up into the instrument. Hopefully these two dowels will fit into those two holes. Tap them into place, and then we're ready to do all the others above this. There's a stack of 6 pipes, and the two bottom pipes are actually longer than the width of the case, so we have to, it's called miter them, we have to put a right angle join into the bottom 2 pipes. So I'm going to cut a 45-degree, I'm going to mark a 45-degree knife mark here, and I'll mark 2 tram lines there, 3mm apart, to take up the width or the curve of the bandsaw blade. So now I've got to very carefully cut in between those 2 knife marks on the bandsaw. I'll make sure that the miter is the right way around, so that the bend is going the right way into the case rather than out of the case. I'm just have to be very careful that the mouth is facing the right way. So then I've put the large part of the pipe into the vise, and now I'm planing down to those knife marks that I cut into the pipe before I cut it up. And that's pretty accurate. You can get it very accurate. If I can just plane that now down so that I can just get rid of those knife marks. I'll just check that that's absolutely flat. And then I'll do the same with the small bit. Now there should be knife marks on this as well, because the 3mm gap took into account the thickness of the kerf of the bandsaw blade. So now I'll just offer the two parts together. Hopefully they will be absolutely flat. They've got to be flat. They've got to be absolutely perfect, because the integrity of the joint will be compromised otherwise. And that's looking pretty good. Now there's a train of thought, and I'm just checking the squareness of that. There's a train of thought to think that I should maybe put some sort of dowel or biscuits or something to join this up, but I've done experiments with this glue, and if as long as there's enough glue and it's properly clamped and left to dry properly, I find it's enough, it's strong enough. I've done tests on these similar joints and I can't knock the joints apart, so I'm happy with this. If I can reach in, I will just strengthen the mitre with a thin piece of leather, but that's not usually the case. With these I can, but with the smaller pipes I can't. But so what I do now is just put some tight bits of masking tape on the joint. And then I just reposition it in the vise slightly to make it a little bit more horizontal. And all I'm going to do now is dump a bellows weight on top of it. There's quite a lot of weight on there now, so that's just it's very awkward to clamp with a clamp, so I think it's better just to use a weight there. So I'll leave that on for a good couple of hours, and then I can fit those and fit the dowels, and there you see why I had to put that mitre in, because it would have been poking out the side of the instrument otherwise. So that's bottom C sharp, and then bottom C goes above that, and that's the 6 biggest pipes, off-note pipes, fitted. I will have to put blocks above that to keep it secure, so to stop that rocking. And then we've got to do the other mitered pipes, which are the tenor pipes, which fit underneath the keyboard just in front of those horizontal pipes. But because I've got a 12-inch blade on this saw, I can just do one cut with the circular saw, which is good enough. There's very little cleaning up necessary doing it this way. So I'm just taking the rough surface from the saw cut off, and that will be a perfect joint. And there we go. Now 2 of these pipes can't just have a simple 90-degree joint. They have to, because of the close proximity of pipes in front of them, these 2 pipes will have to be doubled over, so they'll go up, mitered 90, and then come down again, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So I have to cut, I've got 2 cuts to make on these 2 pipes. So there we have a double mitre. So I've glued that, the big piece onto the side of the main body of the pipe, and then I've just got this V-shaped to glue in finally. Which will be clamped down. And you'll see later on in this video, you'll see where these go under the keys, and you'll see why I had to do that. And that's made so much easier by setting up the saw so that's an exact 45-degree cut. There's very little work needed to fit that mitre. Just clean up most of the glue. This will all be cleaned up. They'll be cleaned up properly with a plane. They look nice, and there they are finished. So you've got 2 double mitres and 3 single mitres. Now we're going to make the off-note blocks. Now these are the blocks that are set to the base end of the wind chest. One block is screwed to the side of the wind chest and the other is sitting on top of the casters, and we'll see that in a minute. Now what I do is exactly the same what I did with the upper boards on the wind chest. You'll see a very fine knife mark there was set 10mm back at the end of the piece. So I'm just putting 2 little dowels, one end, either end, and they will be cut off when I cut the block to length. And they are positioning the so that when I drill through for the holes, the 2 pieces stay together. So there's 2 pieces. There's one 20mm for the grooves and one 10mm for the tip block. Then I've printed off the notes, the pipes, off the drawing, and just pricking through as I know where to drill, just like I did with the upper boards. And that's the small one. And then I drill the tip holes through down into the groove block. There's 3 notes on this small block and 4 on the larger block. And next I need to drill the holes for the conveyancing, which are the tubes that connect the wind chest or the upper boards to these blocks. And that will be the flexible tubing. I use flexible tubing because it's light, it's very convenient for these instruments. It's certainly cheaper than making soldered lead conveyancing, which I'm not capable of doing. I'm not up to that. And they weigh a lot. They're very, very expensive, very, very time consuming. And the flexible tubing is really, for this sort of use, is the perfect thing. Hopefully we'll show that later when I show completing the organ. So I'm just going to mark where I'm going to cut the grooves of the router. And again, just like the upper boards, I'll router the grooves to connect the 2 holes underneath the tip board. And then we just need to glue the tip board to the bottom block. And that's where these dowels come in handy because you can position it exactly where it needs to be every time. And those will be cut off when the glue is dry, and I'll clean up the blocks. There's one down, and then just the big one to do. So there are only 2 off-note blocks on this instrument. All the other off-notes are the front pipes, the decorative pipes, or facade pipes, which we'll do at the end of this video. Right, we'll leave that to dry, and meanwhile we'll make the hooks. Now the hooks are the pieces that basically hold the off notes upright. So we need to make hooks, and we need to make the rails that with the cutouts that take the hooks. These will be attached to the back of the pipe and slot into their relevant blocks or rails. So we just need to cut some drills, the holes for the screws that will attach the hooks to the pipe. Do the countersinks so they're flush. And then we need to make the rails that take those hooks. So I'm just set the depth of this Forstner bit to exactly half of the thickness of the rail, which is 5mm, which is exactly the same thickness as the hook, and the hook will slot into these recesses. Will have to be finished off with a chisel. I should really one day make some sort of router jig for these, and I haven't got around to it. I'm sure I will one day, but I don't know how much time it would really save by the time that you set it up. So yeah, we need to just work to those knife marks that I've done to clean up the holes so that the hooks are a nice snug fit. And we'll just try the hook, and that should just slot in there nicely. There we go. So now the hooks are ready to be fitted to the pipes. So I've attached the rail to the one of the horizontal pipes that we did earlier. So I just need to mark where to drill the holes for the hook. I've placed a little 5mm dowel there so that I've raised the hook up so there's tolerances for any movement. So you don't want the pipe to be hanging on that rail, because then it won't be secure in its pipe hole, in its foot hole. Drill holes for the screws. Attach the hook. And that should glide now nicely into that slot and fit in the hole on the upboard below. And there it is. So we'll just show all those 5 pipes, mitered pipes. You'll see now why they had to be mitered, because otherwise they'd hit the keyboard above. So that's all part of the design process when you're designing the instrument, is fitting these larger pipes. The small pipes take care of themselves because they're not going to hit anything, but these big pipes, you have to be very careful where they fit in the organ so they don't hit anything above them. And there they are in place, and then I've made a little couple of vertical rails there to hold the other rail, and there is the small off-note block screwed to the side of the wind chest. So those 3 notes go there. And then we're just left, as far as the wooden pipes are concerned, we're left with the 4 big ones. And that rail has been screwed onto the casework there, you'll see. And the off-note block is sitting on the caster mounting blocks below. There are those 4 big ones. So then we've just got to do the facade pipes. Now these are the on this organ, as I've mentioned previously, they're a mixture of wooden and metal pipes. So I printed the drawings off the on the plotter, and we'll just prick through as usual. So we know where to drill the holes. The access holes for the conveyancing will be underneath. Now on the smaller ones, on the metal pipes, the conveyance holes will be offset. On the big wooden pipes, they line up with the conveyance holes underneath, so I don't need to offset them. So I'll need to join up, it's a bit confusing, but I'll need to join up the conveyance hole with the tip hole above, because they don't line up. But you'll see how I do that in a minute. So now I'll do the smaller pipes. So now I've got to drill some horizontal holes connecting up the tip hole with the conveyance hole. So I'll drill a 10mm hole down as far as I need to connect up to the 2 holes, and then I will plug these holes, because obviously they're going to leak otherwise. I'll plug these holes so that the wind will go from the conveyance hole across these holes I'm drilling now and up into the tip hole to the pipe. I hope that's clear. So now I've joined up those 2 holes, we need to just plug the horizontal holes by that. And the way I do that is by making some oak plugs. Just release them and we're ready to glue them in. And once they're all in place, I can just chisel the excess off and finish off with a plane. So then we just burn the tip holes to harden them, although it's not really necessary to harden them with this oak, but it looks nice if they're black. It's just a traditional thing to do. We don't need to do those with the wooden ones. Up to the wooden pipes are on the extreme base, extreme treble towers. You can see them there. So we just tap these now into place, and we screw them from underneath to secure them. And there are the blocks for the front pipes. Now we've got to make some half-moon stays, they're called, for the pipes, the metal pipes, to well, it keeps them upright basically. So these will have little pins in them, locating pins, and the pipes will have loops on them which will loop onto the pins. Now some of these dimensions I can use a drill, but others I don't have drill sizes for. So some can be drilled easily with the pillar drill, and the others I will have to cut out on a little jigsaw, a little fret saw. So I'm just drilling the holes for the fixing screws. Again, I drill from both sides so that they're definitely central. And then I need to cut the holes out that are irregular sizes, that don't have drill sizes for. And a bit of clearing up, that's ready to be fixed to the back of the uprights, like that. So now we've got to fit the pins for the loops. So I'll offer the pipe up, get it square to the front of the case, and just have a little pointer that goes down into the work, so I know where to drill. I'll do that with all of them. These pipes are so accurately made, you see the gap between the stay and the loop are all exactly the same. Shire's organ pipes as beautiful as ever. So we drill the holes for the locating pins. And knock the pins in. And then that's the end of this video. We're going to move on next to the racking in of all the smaller pipes, so basically doing what we've done here but much more straightforward, because they all the rest of the pipes just sit on top of the wind chest in the rack board. So we'll just reattach the stay to the casework and slot the pipes in. And they're fixed now, they can't fall out or move. You see that little plastic coating there, that's a protective coating that will come off once the instrument is complete. That's probably the last thing I will do. I want to keep that on as long as possible. And there we have it. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.